All right, all right, all right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. If you're a veteran and you're struggling or feel like you're leading a path towards the darkness, stop and think about those who are around you. Think about how they truly value you, how they will miss you. You are not alone. You need to talk to someone. Someone will listen to you. If you feel like you'll be a burden to someone or you're embarrassed about what's going on in your head, call the hotline at 1-800-273-8255 and press option 1. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps, to include the Military Broadcast Radio app, and check out our family of shows. They're all hosted by veterans in all different genres. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at _MisFitNation. That's _MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell. This will keep you up to date with our latest news, episodes, and of course, the stories of our guests. Speaking of which, our next guest is originally from LA. She holds dual citizenship in the US and the UK. And while growing up and later in college, she split her time between the two countries. She earned her BA in 2008 from Manchester Metropolitan University, and next an MFA in creative writing from California College of the Arts. The Willing is her debut novel. She currently lives a quiet Southern life with her husband and house full of pets. So without further ado, let's welcome Lindsay Lees to the MisFitNation. Welcome, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm fine, Rich. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's awesome to have you on here. Once I seen you had all those corgis and you're an author, I said, I have to have you on here. Since I have 2 corgi grandpups, so I got to have you on here. I sent a picture to my daughter. I said, "You think I should have this author on here?" She said, "Of course."
Well, good. I'm glad that that's a good marketing point for me.
It definitely is. I mean, you said house full of pets. The corgi's got to be enough for me. So
yeah, it's true. Yeah, it is true. No, can't get enough.
So if you don't mind, tell the MisFitNation a little bit about yourself from as far back as you want to go to where we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am originally from LA, born and raised there. Both my parents are English, though. They met in England, and my mother sort of had dual citizenship. So she brought them back both over to LA and set up her family life. And they got divorced when I was pretty young. My dad ended up moving back to the UK when I was 12. And so that sort of created the dual bi-coastal, not bi-coastal, but bi-country life. And so I was definitely influenced by my time living in England and being educated there, and really felt quite at home there, just for many reasons, both biological and environmental, and ended up deciding to pursue an education in writing, kind of after being inspired by growing up and sort of unconventional, sort of dysfunctional household, and using writing as a good tool to process a lot of the traumas, and then from there kind of gaining confidence in my ability to write and wanting to hone my practice in that sense. And so I studied writing as an undergraduate, and then went on to study writing in a master's program. And I began sort of committing to novel writing and things in my early 20s. And from there, it's just been this sort of slow progression to finally kind of getting a published work out there. So yeah, it's definitely, it's been a process.
It's been sort of a journey for you there, a little ride, I guess. You didn't have the normal split household thing where one is in one part of the city, others in the other part of the city. Yours was time zones away across the pond as people like
Yeah,
to call those.
partially. I mean, growing up, it was a little different. My dad like kind of lived literally like the next block from us. Like his house is kind of behind our house. But my parents were workaholics, and so they definitely did spend a lot of time dedicated to their jobs, and so um, it wasn't the most nurturing environment to grow up in.
Right.
Yeah.
So why you chose to go through creative writing in college? Was there a writer or someone that influenced you to want to become a writer prior to that?
Um, I wouldn't say so. Not, I mean, not like directly. I wasn't like, oh, I can do what this person does, and so I'm gonna pursue it for that reason. But there was definitely writers that um, inspired me and led me to believing that it was something I was capable of doing. Um, even from like a young age, like writers like Roald Dahl, just that sort of creative interpretation of family life, or just the fantastical side, all the way through to like Margaret Atwood, who wrote The Handmaid's Tale, and George Orwell for their speculative takes on what the future could look like. They've definitely they definitely had a big influence, but I don't know, it wasn't. I guess even today, you're kind of like, oh well, am I really a writer? Is this really? Can I call myself that? Am I just an imposter?
Just ask yourself two questions. Do I have a book? Is it published?
Yeah,
Did you
right.
write it?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. So it's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
can you hold it in your hands, or is it, just a memory?
Yeah, exactly.
So you are a writer. Just say it with pride.
Yes, yes.
So tell us about The Willing. How'd you come up with the idea, and is any of it true?
Yeah, so The Willing is a dystopia set in a utopian city-state of Ovoidia. And in Ovoidia, the men are allowed to have sex with any woman that they choose over the age of 16. And this rule that was created makes for an aggression free, crime free society to an extent. Um, it is a world where men and women live sort of divided lives. So Avoidia is split between a city and the communities, and the men are relegated to the city where they work and live, and the women are provided a housing community, a state where once they have children after the age of 16, they're given a house, a living stipend. They're basically just protected from whatever uh, environment that they create for themselves. And all the women, after a certain period of time, just evolutionarily, they lost the ability to experience sexual pleasure. So when the city state was created, at whatever period that was, um, after several generations, they lost the ability to experience sexual pleasure. And I mean, it doesn't really talk about it in the book as much, but let's say that because they were subject to things like female genital mutilation and things like that, to desensitize them at the time, to allow for them to conform to the rules of the society, then that's what kind of created their progression to none of them feeling any sensual, sensitive pleasure at all. The city, the country is ruled by a group of women who I call the head Gajis. And the Gajis are the sort of founding family that decided that from their ancestors being subjected to abuse and torture and war and everything that sort of precluded deciding that they were going to find a solution to that problem, that they figured that if we just give our bodies to men, then this must be a way to prevent any sort of further abuse and oppression happening to us. So they decided that this was good, this was how it's going to be, and they create this set of rules, and then they see that, okay, well, it seems to be working. There's no violence, there's no crime, there's only rigid rules set up for anybody who breaks the rules that we're setting for them. So the protagonist is a 15-year-old girl. Her name is Gypsy, and she is, of course, the exception to the rule. She discovers that she can experience sexual pleasure, and so she realizes that what's happening is a problem, and is the one to sort of stand up to try to fight the system and see if she can escape her fate, in a sense. And whether she does or not is questionable.
That's a pretty good summary of the book right there. I like the town or the state of Avoidia. It's like avoiding something, but Avoidia. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but it's also an ovoid is sort of the shape of an egg, and so it's like in Ovoidia, everything is sort of egg shaped. Like they don't believe in having any phallic symbols at all, so everything has a curve to it. You can't have any sort of symbolism that is male, at all, and it's supposed to just be this round, sensuous sort of environment that you think is so great, that they want to portray as so fantastic, but really it's horrible and oppressive. No, not any way that anyone wants to live.
It's almost along the lines of sex trafficking, I guess it would be kind of it, with all the women having to have intercourse with any man that wants it, basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's inspired by the idea that women who were trafficked and did experience that abuse from the past or historically, my take is, well, what would a woman ever decide that the solution to this was just to surrender your body? And if you can do that, then will that create a world where children are safe, where you can grow up without the fear of being murdered or kidnapped or ABCD, just because you have chosen to sacrifice.
Right. And it's a real problem across, especially when you live near interstate systems that can take someone from one side of a country to another instantly. If they do, like you say, kidnap a young girl in, say, Texas or something, they can be in Tennessee within less than a day and have no idea where they are and sold to someone else. Into a horrible life.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you say that, because, we live in America. So you know that these sort of these not freedoms, but privileges can't exist because we live in such a huge place, and you don't know where somebody could end up. One of the shows that I've been watching on Netflix is this Japanese program where it's called Old Enough, and they basically encourage their 2 to 4 year old children, 2 to 4 year old kids, to go off and run errands by themselves. But they're filmed while they do it. But because they live in these little villages and things, there's no threat to them. And so you know that in their culture, they can encourage and promote children being alone by themselves because they have a sort of a community that is looking out for them, but they also live in a place where there's nowhere to go necessarily, even if they something, potentially could happen to them. There's only so far that they can end up. And so there's a little more sense of justice and resolution occurring. But here in the States, it doesn't feel at all the same way. And things seem to, and this sort of breakdown of society that we've seemed to have over however many decades, that now you have this real sense of fear that you could just get kidnapped on the street at any point. That, yeah, it's definitely disheartening.
Definitely. We had I think a 13-year-old girl up here taken right from in front of her house. Right, her sneakers were still in her front porch. She got taken, and luckily she was able to escape. Probably 8 hours later, at 1 o'clock in the morning, she was able to escape and run to someone's house and get help. But it was right in front of her house it happened.
Terrifying. So crazy. So yeah, I mean, the women of Avoidia, they have decided that they would rather make the choice to make this sacrifice in order to protect the children from being threatened in that way. And so, there is a divide. I think that there are people who would think, absolutely not, I would never allow that to happen to my body. And then there are some people who question, whether or not it could potentially be worth it.
Right. You got to weigh the options for what's good for you, I guess. What do you think is good for you, and what's the safest bet for both situations as you go forward? And
Yeah.
I think that's a great storyline for The Willing. And do you have a second book in the work already? And what would that be about?
No, I mean, I don't. I have left the ending, even though it might not be what you expect from the ending. I have left it sort of open-ended, where there is the hope that something more could come of it. But I'm sort of holding off on writing that until I get a sense of how well the first book is doing,
Right.
how successful that's going to be before I commit to putting out something else. But I don't know, my focus is just a bit different. I really spent my 20s writing and committed to writing and spending hours a day writing, and now I've got all these pets and I'm trying to start a family, and it's just so it's just such a different place to be. And so I don't feel like compelled in the same way as I did in a decade ago.
Now you're getting so old now, you can't understand all the time. Well, you don't want to ruin that biological clock now.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But if you if you do get the itch to write, you're in the perfect place to find stories. You can just go down to the main drag there and just sit in a chair and watch people and get all your characters and have
Definitely.
probably a 500-page novel in one night.
It's very true, and it's definitely always an option, which I appreciate for sure, because I'm definitely a people watcher, and you will find me sitting back observing and listening more than you'll hear me talking and wanting to be any sort of central attention.
So, like I said, you're definitely in the best place to do, because people come from all over to go there, and they do some pretty crazy things down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, voluntarily, totally.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, totally. There's no coercion. Well, there's alcohol coercion, I guess, would be the only thing. But other than that, they're voluntarily doing it all.
Yeah, no, there's very little inhibition in in Nashville.
Yes. If you had to give tips to a young writer or someone that just woke up this morning and said, I want to be an author, what would those tips be?
First tip is to listen. Listen more than you talk. talking doesn't make you a good writer. Talking certainly doesn't make you a good writer of dialogue. Listen to how people talk, listen to inflection and cadence, and really get down the natural flow of conversation. Second is to write. Pick a time, pick a place, try to commit to a routine. All of those habit building hobbies will benefit you more than anything. Get involved you don't have to pay $100,000 to go to an MFA program. It's not a requirement to be a writer. I happened to meet my husband in my MFA program, so I mean, it wouldn't have really happened any other way. But finding a writing community, getting feedback from other writers, that's pretty vital too. It's like you need to bounce ideas off writers. You need the support of other writers. Even if you just start your own group, even if you just solicit people online in your neighborhood, you can do it all on Zoom now. Nobody has to meet in person. That's pretty important. I've heard about these writing classes that people would sign up for Zoom. They literally like go on there, see other people, and spend an hour just writing with other people. Nobody talks. You just sit there on the Zoom meeting and you just sit there and write. And that's a little odd to me, but like it's a thing.
Wow. So you sit in silence.
Yeah, right. Looking at other people writing. So, if you need that motivation, if you just feel like, you don't really have the confidence, or you don't feel like you have the initiative or the discipline, then join these things. And then other people are kind of holding you accountable too, to get some writing done. And submit your work, submit to magazines, don't be afraid of rejection. Rejection is very difficult. Nobody likes rejection, but it's a prerequisite to being successful in a way. There's definitely no guarantee that everybody's going to like you. People's tastes are subjective. You'll obviously find people that do enjoy your writing, but others who aren't so keen, and that's okay. And that doesn't make you any better or worse of a writer. It just makes you human and part of our society, and accepting of differing values and differing opinions and everything. And those are probably like the most important aspects, right? Get involved, put your work out there, and drink lots of coffee and tea, and
stay awake and write.
Yeah.
That's great advice, great tips. I'm still trying to get my head around people sitting on Zoom not talking but writing. I guess it's like an accountability partner. I mean, in the gym, I'm guessing, but I'm not sure. It's weird. Like you said, it's weird, but if it works for them, it works for them.
Exactly.
It's a tool, I guess.
Yep. Well, especially in this culture now where we are living online so much more. Yeah.
I guess it's better than sitting and looking at their phone and not talking to nobody, but typing, but now they're writing and not talking. So you found something even crazier. It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So where can people find The Willing?
Yeah, I'm the book's available digitally and in print, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Kobo, Apple Books. Amazon is Kindle and print, and if you have Prime, you can have it in a day or two, super easy. If you want to check out the first chapter of the book before you buy it, you can find that on my website, thewillingnovel.com. And yeah.
What's the best way to get in contact with you if someone else wants to have you on their show, or if someone just wants to ask you for more tips other than the silent Zoom?
Yeah. You can contact me on my website. There's a contact form on there. That's probably the best way.
Awesome. Well, Lindsay, it's been great chatting with you. Thanks for sharing the willing with us and your story with us, of course. I'll let you get back to your corgis and some quiet time tonight before things go crazy down there.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.